Girl Gaze is a unique project by the Punjab Lalit Academy in collaboration with the Creative Black Country UK. It brings together 4 women photographers, 2 from India and 2 from the UK, as they journey through both the Black Country in the UK as well as Punjab to bring to us different thematic photographs based on women, each photographer bringing to the gallery a different experience and what they felt and what they saw. Right now we have Jennifer Pattison, who is one of the photographers. Jennifer has been living in London for the last 20 years, and photography is something that is very close to her heart. She is part of the project, and we will talk to Jennifer about Girl Gaze. Welcome to India and the Punjab Lalit Kala Academy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, how does it feel to see your work and your project in the gallery and on display?
Yeah, it looks great. So I'm really happy with how it's all come together, and particularly it's very interesting to see how different all the pieces are. So yeah, I'm excited for the opening this evening.
Jennifer, we haven't talked about Creative Black Country and what is the philosophy of Creative Black Country. If you could share a little about Creative Black Country and how it has got this project together.
Well, I think the project really is the brainchild of Parminder, who is the director of Creative Black Country, and she herself is British Punjabi, and I think she particularly wanted to make a piece really focusing on women from her country.
Right.
And I think that was kind of the inspiration, and also I think she wanted to try and create a piece of work that perhaps challenged some of the sort of stereotypical imagery that was perhaps being made, in her country. Right. Or, I think choosing photography as the art form, I think it was something perhaps slightly different.
Yes, yes. And so how did the project come to you?
Okay, so I was approached by Iona Fergusson, who's curated the project, and was working with Parminder at Creative Black Country, and I think Iona, from her extensive knowledge of artists, was able to sort of suggest potential artists that she knew the work of that might fit with the project. So I think Iona had seen some of my work that I'd actually made on an artist residency in Rio, and I think she felt the kind of sensibilities would work with India. So she approached me, and we were asked to come up with a concept, and it kind of went from there.
Okay. So Jennifer, tell us a little about your background and your association with photography and the kind of work that you do, not about this project, but the kind of work you do.
So I studied photography and gained a Bachelor of Arts at the London College of Printing, which is part of the University of Arts in the UK. I subsequently, I suppose I've chosen to make work really about people.
Okay.
And I actually have made quite a few portrait series. But I suppose historically a lot of my work was kind of perhaps using other people as a canvas to try and kind of process thoughts and feelings about my own identity. However, more recently I have been enjoying working with texts or poems or novels as inspiration and a kind of creative jumping off point, really. Okay. But I think for this particular project, I've chosen to work with something that was very, very close to me, and I think often, looking for inspiration, not looking too far for inspiration, and things that are very close to your heart often kind of provide, great inspiration. So that's why at the time when I was approached to do this project, I'd recently become a mother. So when thinking about an idea, the ideas of lullabies felt very kind of it fitted well with me, and also it felt like a subject that women, universally could relate to.
Right. And the title of your project is very interesting. What is it and where did it come from?
So Rice Pudding Moon and the River of Dreams. Well, there is actually an image in the show which is a kind of fabricated landscape of a moonlit scene, and it's something I ended up making. I think I was doing a sort of small staged portrait where I was trying to make a visualization of Chanda Mama, who has appeared in some of the lorries that featured in Bollywood cinema.
Right.
So I had a beautiful kind of midnighty blue backdrop, and I had also used as a prop a bowl of rice pudding.
Right.
So kind of at the end of the shoot, we went up onto the roof and the light was very, very low, and I just wanted to, make a landscape rather than actually shoot a real one in reality, even though I had done that already. And so the way that the rice pudding and the way the height of the sun really was kind of catching it at such an angle that you could see this crescent moon. So I was like, so I got really excited. I made this picture, and then as a reference, because all my work is shot on film and every roll of film is written down in the notebook. And so it was like, okay, we'll call this is Rice Pudding Moon, and, whatever notes needed to be made. And then that was always in the notebook, and I think I was actually just trying to think of a title, and I was having a shower one evening, and it was like, it's Rice Pudding Moon. And I think the River of Dreams, there's a lot of imagery of the moon over water, and water is very calming and sleepy. So I think, it also there is a sort of a UK lullaby that talks about baby bunting, and he's in a sort of wicker little cot and floats, so there's lots of reference to water, so that's where it comes from.
Okay, and you also mentioned how you heard your mother sing to your baby, and that got you back, some very...
Yeah, I think that really was the kind of clinching moment, if you like, when my daughter was about 8 weeks old, and I was spending quite a lot of time at my mother's house because my partner was away working. And although I had already intuitively just been, rocking her and humming or repeating her name or whatever, it was when my mum was with her and my mum was singing. And obviously, I was quite kind of emotional anyway. And there was something in hearing her sing those songs that brought back, it was much more of a feeling, an emotion, than any... it was sort of flood of emotion, of kind of closeness with her, and somewhere there was, an unconscious memory, I think, of her singing those songs to me, which her mother had sung to her. And then, just opening that conversation, I think that it's so easy for us to, as a child, as a small child, you don't often remember those things because sadly, you don't remember much of those very early years where you're, so that it was really a kind of strong emotional moment for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you talked about your photography with people.
Yeah.
So this project must have resonated a lot with you because this was also about people.
Yeah.
So did you have a structure in mind when this project came to you? Did you have a vision for it? Did you have how are you going to translate it? It sounds beautiful when it's read. Yes. But the challenge for you must have been how to translate it into photographs, and you also use a lot of videos.
Yeah, well, I think because I had previously worked on a project where I'd used a piece of text as a kind of jumping off point, if you like, I wanted to use that process again. So initially I was in touch with, throughout the project I was in touch with a professor at the Punjab University in Patiala, Professor Surjit Singh, and one of his students had made a big piece of research looking at lorries from the Punjab, specifically the Malwa region. So I was able to kind of extract, get some translations. And so from that I wrote quite a basic shot list of imagery that I wanted to try and capture. But I also knew that I wanted to sort of fuse those with trying to create, trying to show this very emotive, strong feeling, the bond between mother and child, which is a very kind of intimate moment. So I knew I'd need to do some setup shoots, and obviously I wanted to meet both women in the Black Country and women in the Punjab. And, you know, I was incredibly fortunate and felt very, very lucky to have been invited into a very personal space. So a lot of the portraits that I made, I arranged to go and meet with mothers, and specifically I wanted to be there at a time when their children were going to sleep. And, you know, that's a really tricky thing, I know, to even get your baby to sleep, especially if there's somebody else there. So I felt really privileged to be invited into this space. And was incredibly lucky that I had all these happy little babies that went to sleep. And, you know, so in one sense there was this sort of intimate portraiture going on with the mothers and the babies. And then a lot of the imagery I also not only took from the traditional folkloric lorries, but I took from Bollywood clips from lorries that were being sung, because the group of women that I spoke to in the Black Country, when I asked them about their childhood, some women couldn't really remember. I mean, and maybe that is just like I was mentioning, it's hard to have many memories when you're 1 or 2. But anyway, the women I was talking to had moved to the Punjab after partition in the kind of 50s and 60s. And I think that was also a time when Bollywood, in a lot of the scores, their films included these kind of sleepy moments, these lorries. So the women that I met sort of sent me links and directed me to these specific clips. So then I looked at a lot of the clips, and I suppose a lot of that imagery in the films were, you know, the moon would come up, there'd maybe be a kind of panning shot from outside, and there'd be clouds racing across the sky and a full moon, and the camera would pan inside, and there was, you know, a mother trying to lull her baby to sleep. So that's where a lot of the sort of moon imagery came from.
Interesting, interesting. So was it, how was the experience of working in India? And if you could talk about both the experiences, how similar and how contrasting were they?
I mean, I had travelled to India before, but I had I travelled to the south quite a bit and to Delhi, but anyway, I hadn't ever been to the Punjab. I think, if anything, I was really struck by incredible trust and openness by all the women that I met, who were, you know, very, very warm and happy to invite me into their homes, and again invite me to be there when their child is going to sleep, which I felt that was, I also felt the mothers were incredibly calm, and a lot of the mothers I met, it was their first baby. Some of them were working and had come home in between shifts to be able to facilitate the shoot, and the baby was maybe being looked after by a family member, but the mothers were very, very calm. And, you know, I myself was aware, and I thought, wow, you know, I'm not sure I would be so open to have someone come in and photograph myself and my daughter. And, you know, I did notice as well, a lot of the families that I went and photographed, grandparents were there, and there was quite a few family members to pass the baby around to. Whereas I think I mean, the experience wasn't dissimilar in the UK, other than it was perhaps harder to get women to kind of agree to be photographed or to come forward, because I don't know, I think most of the contact we were trying to make was through social media, whereas the contacts that I was making in Punjab were actually fairly personal to the producer. It was friend of friend of friend or something. So the women, once I actually got access to people's homes in the Black Country, again, they were incredibly kind of relaxed and sort of open. But, you know, some had the help of their immediate family there, and, you know, I also met grandparents and things there, but not everybody.
Right. And we talk a lot about gender disparity. So did you feel any here in India while doing the project?
I mean, I think although I didn't, I think the conversations perhaps I had more with one of the students who had done her PhD on the lorries. I think more we were looking at the kind of content of those, and I think a lot of those lorries contained very, very domestic scenes where perhaps the boys were being lulled to sleep and the girls perhaps were kind of a bit more in the background, sewing and cooking and things like that. And that was definitely discussed, and I think we kind of wondered whether perhaps it wasn't such a bad thing that some of these songs might be being forgotten. But other than kind of that, I think I kind of felt from conversations that things were perhaps shifting for women here, which was certainly the case with a lot of the mothers that I was speaking to, who were, like I say, working and very well educated and having similar access to men. So, but I think having looked specifically at the more traditional older songs, I can see how rapidly things are changing.
Right.
Yeah.
So now what? Are you working on some new project or any future projects that, are you taking something back from this project which you want to take further?
I wonder if it might be something I might try and continue. I feel like although we spent about 12 months working on the project, for me the shooting time was fairly restricted because I was travelling away from my daughter, who I didn't want to leave for long amounts of time. And I think I have found that it's a subject that I'm at the moment really interested in, and perhaps I might choose to kind of further that. But immediately I think I just want to have a bit of time to process the experience and kind of get the work out there, really.
So you hope to take this, show it back home also?
Yes, the exhibition, there's definitely plans to show it in the UK, both in the Black Country and perhaps in London also. Right. So I think, that would be really, really great if that can be confirmed, which it's looking likely.
Right. And you're a full-time photographer?
I'm trying to work as much as I can and kind of juggle my life. But yes, it's, I have lots of other projects that are kind of going on, and, when you have time, you kind of put your energies into those things. But to be honest, this really has taken up all my spare time for the last year.
And are you happy with how it has turned out?
Yeah, I'm very, very happy. It's actually, it's exceeded my expectations, and I'm very happy to be in a part of such a interesting exhibition with 3 other very talented artists.
Yes. Thank you. It was wonderful to me. Thank you.
Thanks.